Akadosh Boker or Masechet Ketubot Daf Ain Aleph Amud Aleph 71A1. The two dots. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, B'Yisrael Chodesh Echad. If you remember, we were talking about if it's going to be a regular Jew and he made a vow, a neder, that he will not give parnasah to his wife. So then what happens? So he said if it's going to be 1 month, so then he's going to be mekayem. But after 1 month, he has to divorce her. So ask the Gemara, Hainu Tanakama. This is a Tanakama. He says, why? He comes and he says, because the words of Rabbi Yehuda that he says that you're going to have her as a parnas for 1 month is the words of the Tanakama that until Shoshim Yom, right, you're going to keep her. And if it's going to be afterwards, so what's the machlokim between Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama? So Abaye comes and he says, Kohenet Tatalishmin. No, you're right. There's no difference. The chidush is to do with a kohenet. What does it mean to do with a kohenet? If you remember, we said that by a kohenet, right, it's going to be 2 months. Now, the reason why we were more lenient by a kohenet that he's got an extra month is because if he divorces her, kaddish, he can never retract. If it's by a regular Yisrael, okay, so he can divorce her today, tomorrow he comes back, this, that, fine. If it's by a kohenet, he can never come back. So because he can never come back, so therefore because of that, right, we are a little bit more lenient. Rava comes and he says, Chodesh maleh v'chodesh chaser yikabena. You know, the difference between them is maleh v'chaser. Why? Because did you realize Tanakama said shoshim yom, which is always a chodesh maleh. Rabbi Yehuda, he only said chodesh echad. So therefore, which is even a chodesh chaser. So the difference is going to be even 1 day. Because basically, do we go by the month or 30 days? Right? Not every month in the Hebrew calendar is 30 days. Right? Half of them are 29. So because of that, that's the difference between them. Amar Rav now comes and he says, Lo shano lemimfaresh. But that's only if he was mefaresh his neder. Aval b'stam. What happens if he just says stam? He makes a neder, he's not going to give to parnasah to his wife. He's not going to give her food. Yotzi le'altar v'yiten ketubah. Immediately has to get divorced, and he gives her the ketubah. Shmuel says, no, afilu b'stam lo yotzi. Even in the case of stam, he doesn't take her out. Shema yimtza petach lenidol. Because maybe he's going to find a petach for the neder. And once he finds the petach for the neder, which is the entrance to get out of the neder, so therefore he'll get out of it, and therefore he will be even within the 30 days. So says the Gemara, this was already a machloket that they argued about once. The Tanam was we learned in the Mishnah Bav, Samechalaf Amud Bet, Hamadiret Ishtomita Shmishamita. So there we were talking about relations. Here we're talking about food, but there we were talking about relations. And there we said Hamadiret Ishtomita Shmishamita. Bet Shammai only Bet Shammai comes and he says 2 weeks, Shabbatot. By Bet Hillel omrim Shabbat Echad. Bet Hillel says it's 1 Shabbat. Ve'amar Rav, and Rav comes and he says machloket. What is a machloket? B'mefaresh. Only if they came and they explained it explicitly. But he comes and he says, however, though aval b'stam, if it's going to be stam, yotzi le'altar, right? You go out immediately. Yiten ketubah, and you're going to give the ketubah. Shmuel Aman, and Shmuel comes and he says, afilu b'stam nami lo yotzi. Even in stam also, you're not going to take it out. Shema yimtza petach lenidro. Because that means you're not going to divorce her, because maybe you're going to find a petach for the neder. Okay? So says the Gemara, that means even though we just had a question, we just spoke about the exact same case, it was already machloket to do tashmish. Why do we need now the same case to do with food? So answers the Gemara, tzricha. We need both of them. Right? Look in the middle. He says as follows, he says we need both of them. Di'itmar ba'hi. As if it's talking about now in that case, we're talking about the case of, right, the only to do with the Mishnah of Tashmish. Rav, there Rav said, you can't put a parnas to give Tashmish to your wife, right? So because of that, that's why he said, right, that these are the halachot. But to do with the food, tevshar parnas, right, that you could have a parnas. I'm going to say maybe that he agrees to Shmuel. And if it was only written about the food, you could have a parnas. With tashmish, maybe he agrees to Rav, right? That since you cannot have a tashmish, you cannot have a parnas or tashmish, therefore he's going to argue. Therefore you need both machlokot, meaning that in both cases they both agree, right? It's basically we're coming with 2 different machlokot, right, between one and the other. So now the Mishnah comes, the Gemara comes and brings down the Mishnah. Now we learned on the Mishnah. Imagine a person comes and he makes a neder of his wife that they're not going to come and eat one of the certain types of fruits. So he said the same thing. He cannot stop his wife from eating a certain fruit. Yotzi, he has to get rid of her. He has to divorce her. right, and give a ketubah. It's not getting rid of her. We're forcing him to divorce her. Umimela, she gets her ketubah. So Bisham Rav, this is good according to Rav. Kan bistam kam mefaresh. Why? Because it all depends whether it's stam or mefaresh. If it's stam, right, that's one halacha. But if it's mefaresh and he's saying in a certain amount of time, it's a different halacha. But according to Shmuel, that he says that even in stam, you're going to wait. Kasha, you have a question. What's the difference between the reisha and the seifa? Why is it that when it's one of the fruits, you're obligated to take out immediately? So answers the Gemara. What are we dealing with? Remember, she made the neder, and then he was mekayem the neder. So Rabbi holds that he's putting the finger in between her mouth, which is what does that mean? Remember, we brought this machoket already, which is basically, is it the fact that she made the neder, she's putting the finger in her mouth, right? He's just going for the bite, as they say, going for the kill, right? A lot of people, they love doing that, right? You already put yourself in the situation, go for the kill. Or do we say the opposite way around? We say that no, the fact that he went and he was mekayem, he was the one that did it. So because of that, we have this machloket between the two different opinions. So says the Gemara, what does Rabbi Meir hold? Is that he's the one that's putting the finger in between the mouth? Why? But Tanya we learned. Imagine right now, a woman comes, she makes a neder to become a nazirah. Yeah, she wants to become a nazirah. Follow. So does Rabbi Meir hold? He's the one which is notenet ben shineh. At time we learned to the Braita, a woman makes a neder, she wants to become a nazirah, right? Which means she's going to leave her hair long, she's not going to go to the cemetery, she's not going to drink wine. So the husband listens. He doesn't do a farat nedarim. Yeah, he doesn't do a farat nedarim. He leaves it. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda say, right? She was the one which put her finger in between her teeth, and therefore she cannot force her husband, right, to do the farat nedarim. And therefore, if he wants to, he could do a farat nedarim. But if he comes and he says, I don't want this woman that she's making nedarim. He could leave without a ketubah, which means she cannot force a husband to do a farat nedarim. She was the one that made the neder. You put your foot in it, or your mouth in it, whichever one it is that you put in it. But you put it in it. It's your fault now. That is the shita of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Lazar argue, and they say, he was the one that he put his finger in her mouth. Why? He could have done a farat nedarim. And therefore, if you want to do a farat, you could do a farat nedarim. And if not, if he says, he has to give her the ketubah. You're right, he could divorce her 100%. But he has to give her the ketubah. Here, the entire machlok between them is, does she lose the ketubah or not? Because basically, if it's his fault, she doesn't lose the ketubah. If it's her fault, she loses the ketubah. So here, we're talking about, again, one more time, nobody could force the husband to do a farat nedarim. It doesn't exist. You could advise him, right? It's why, but you couldn't force the husband to do a farat nedarim. The only question is, who's the one that's putting the foot in it? Is it her because she made the neder, right? He could have done it, yeah, but you can't force him to do a farat nedarim. Or is it him, the fact that he was mekayem the neder? The fact that he did not do a farat nedarim, he was mekayem the neder. So that's the question, right? The machloket between them. So says the Gemara, you're right. Epuch, switch it around. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda are the ones that says that hu noten, that he's the one that's putting the finger in her mouth. Rabbi Yosef and Lazar are the ones that saying he natzna, that she was the one that did it. Vesava Rabbi Yosef he natzna. Are you going to tell me that Rabbi Yosef is now that we just switched it? Now we just said that she's the one that's putting the finger in her mouth. Does Rabbi Yosef actually hold that? But now we learned. Rabbi Yosef omer ba'aniyot shelo natan kitzba. What does that mean? According to Shtat Rabbi Yosef, if a person comes and he's going to be Madir's wife, that she cannot put on any type of tachshitim, so he has to give her ketubah. However, though, when it's an aniyah, what happens if she's an aniyah? So then there was no kitzbah. Rashirot is 30 yom. So you see from here that in our Mishnah, when the woman made the neder and the husband was mekayem the neder, right? Still Rabbi Yosef holds, right, that the husband is the one that has to be motzivit and ketubah, which means that it's hu natam, it's not he natana. So answers the Gemara, you're right. You don't have to switch Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda for one thing and Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Lazar another thing. Put Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yosef together. Ema Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yosef together. Omrim unoten. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar together putting hinatna. So says the Gemara, "V'savar Rabbi Yehuda hinatna." Does Rabbi Yehuda, is he the one that holds? She was the one that put her finger on it. But now we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Israel Yom Echad Yikayem. According to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, imagine right now he comes and he says right, that his wife is, right, he comes and makes a neder that his wife is not allowed to come and eat any types of the fruits. So according to Rabbi, if it's a Yisrael, so it's going to be one day. If it's more than 1 day, you have to divorce her and you have to give her the ketubah. So now here we're talking about she was the one that made the neder, and he was only mekayem the neder. So according to that, you still see the what that he holds that since, right, he did not do hafarat nedarim, right? It's like kimoshe noten etzba benchina, and not like what we just said beforehand. So you're right. It says the Gemara, you have to put Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef omrim hu noten. He's the one that's doing it. That means according to these 3 rabbis now, before we had 2 and 2, we switched the order of the 2 like this. Then afterwards we said no, 1 from here, 1 from here, put them together. Now it's 2 and 2 again. Now we're making a 3 against 1. 3 of them is Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef. They all say hu noten etzba benchina. He's the one that's putting it, but since he was mekayem the neder, it's his fault. Okay. And Rabbi Lazar says, Hinatna. She is the one which is putting the finger in between, right? Her in between them. If you're going to come and you're going to tell me, right? Zuge ktani, that it's 2 and 2s. Why don't you just say it's Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar are the ones that saying that she's the one that's putting her finger in the, and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef are saying that he's the one. So says the Gemara, and there you're going to say the Stam Mishnah is not going to be like Rabbi Meir. So says the Gemara, are you going to tell me now that according to Rabbi Yosef, if right now he came in, she made the neder, right? He made the neder that she's not allowed to come and put on any adornments, right? So he says, or she cannot eat, right, from all the different adornments. So he says, why he could do a hafarat nedarim? Or meaning we have a contradiction. These are the things that a husband could be mefer. Anything which is inui nefesh. For example, imer chatz, right? If she comes and she says, if she's going to take a shower within a certain amount of time. So anything to do with showering, boom, he could do a farat nedarim. Im lo erchatz, or she cannot take a shower, she's not going to take a shower. Im et kashet or lo et kashet, if she's going to put on adornments or not. Amar Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Yosef, that's not inui nefesh. What is inui nefesh? That means according to him, the husband cannot make a farat nedarim on showers or on kishutim, because it's not inui nefesh. What is considered inui nefesh according to Shita Rabbi Yosef? Right? Shelo chal basar, she's not going to eat meat. Shelo yishta yain, she's not going to drink wine. Right? Or shelo et kashet, right? She's not going to put on certain types of clothing. Ayin aleph amubet, 72b. Okay? So what does that mean? In all these things, we're talking about, right, that according to him, this is called inui nefesh. But it's not stam kishut. Stam kishut is she's putting on perfume or she's putting on makeup. It's not the same as mamash's clothing, certain type of clothing, right, or things like that. Okay? What are we dealing with over here? Which means when she came and she said which means, for example, let's say she's talking about that she's not going to use. Exactly. What does that mean? Meaning, for example, let's say she's going to come, she's not going to remove the hair from her private parts, right? So her private parts, she would remove her hair. She comes and she makes another, she's not going to remove her hair in the private parts. So that could actually stop the husband during tashmish, could bother him. So therefore, even though he cannot stop her for regular kishut of putting on makeup or, for example, stam putting on jewelry, but of this he could stop her. Why? Because since this is dvarim shebeno levena, he still has the rights to stop her, right, from doing this. So says the Gemara, this is good according to the mandamar, dvarim shebeno levena v'bal mefer, that a husband can do a faran nedarim on dvarim shebeno levena. According to the mandamar bal mefer, that he can she'ena bal mefer, that the husband cannot do a faran nedarim. Michael, what are you going to say then? So the Itma was saying, things to do with between her and him. Ravuna comes and he says, a bal mefer, the husband can do hafarat nedarim. Ravada comes and he says, in a bal mefer, he cannot do it. Shelo matzinu shual shemet ba'afar pir. We never found a shual, the fox, which died, right, because of the afar, which is inside of the pir. What does that mean, right? The shual, he's always goes in this afar. Understand? So therefore, it doesn't bother him. So the husband that's always with his wife, so the se'ar in that place is not going to bother him. Meaning that if right now she's going to have hair down below, it's not going to bother him, right? So therefore, the neder is not just stam, right? It's not going to stam dvarim shebeno levena. Okay? So because of that, he comes and he says that there's no problem. So Rabbi Barava is going to be the one that's sovered, that therefore, en abal mefer, even neder shel kishut, right? Of taking off hairs. Okay, and therefore it goes back to the question that we said. from according to Rabbi said the Mishnah, it came out that the husband could do a farat nedarim for his wife. It's not true. It all depends on what's case. So answers the Gemara. What are we dealing with? What does that mean? She made the neder depending upon the kishutim of tashmish hamita. The amra that she went and she said, "Yaser anaat tashmishecha alai imet kashet." The ikar of the neder is on the tashmish, and she comes and she says that if she's going to put on makeup or put on jewelry, so then she's not allowed to have relations with you. That's what she went and she said. So she made the tashmish, meaning that was the ikar. Then now she's not going to have relations. What? She puts this on. So therefore, right, these are dvarim shemin olamina. So therefore, because of that, that's why the husband could come and he could do a farat nedarim according to everybody. Why? Because it's mamash. It's vaday dvarim shemin olamina lechu lealma. It's not just whatever it is. The Amar of Kana, just like Rav Kana comes in, he says, the Amar of Kana, Rav Kana says, Hanat Tashmishi alecha kofel m'shamashto. If right now she comes and she says in a neder that she's not going to have tashmish with her husband, we force her, that the neder is not chalam, we force her to have relations. Why? She could not prohibit herself to her husband because she has a lien to her husband. She's subjugated to her husband to have relations, right? No, the neder is not chalam. Therefore, we force her to have relations. Okay? So therefore he says, Hanat tashmishecha alai. However, he says the Baal does not want to be mekayem the farah, right? He comes and he says that if he's not going to be mefer, so then he's going to be prohibited, right? So therefore, that means it all depends on the neder. If she comes and he says that she's not going to have relations with him, so therefore the neder is not chal because she is subjugated to him. So she's subjugated to him, so therefore it's not going to help. However, though, hanat tashmishecha alai, which means that she says, I don't want your tashmish onto me, so then he has to do a farat nadarim. Because then we're not going to, that means even though she's mishuberet to her husband, she's subjugated to her husband for tashmish, the neder that she made is that she's going to be a surah tashmish on the husband, and therefore, right, that's what he says here, she could prohibit herself, mashetitze. So therefore, the husband's allowed to have relations with her. So because of that, he comes and he says that he has to do hafanat nedarim. So says the Gemara, fine. Fine. She shouldn't put kishutim, and she shouldn't become prohibited. What was the thing? That if she puts on the makeup, or she puts on the adornments, or whatever it is, she's not going to have relations. Fine. Don't put it on, and she's not going to be prohibited for relations. Answers the Gemara, if so, karula menuvelet. They're going to call her a menuvelet, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore, right, what's going to happen is that basically they're going to start making fun of her. The women, they're going to come, they're going to start saying things like, well, what's this woman here? She looks like I don't know what. So for what's going to happen? She's going to become so embarrassed, she'll start putting on makeup. She'll start putting on adornments. Because of that, he comes and he says, so then she's going to become prohibited to the husband. So says Gemara, okay, fine. So what's the big deal? Let her put on the makeup. Let her put on the jewelry, whatever it is. And then she's become prohibited in tashmish. And then just wait. And then he'll get rid of her. So just wait, either 1 week or 2 weeks, and then get rid of her, and that's it. What's the problem? It was her fault. So says the Gemara, when do we say that we wait for a woman when she made a neder? Only if he made the neder, right? The sabra, because the woman thinks, the woman knows, it could be that right now he's very, very angry, so he started saying, crazy things, right? That's men, no? Especially, some Moroccans, yeah? They come, they get, they get on fire, right? But don't worry about it. We'll calm down. Sometimes, I know, there's a certain person, he'll be on fire. Give him 2 weeks, all of a sudden, that's it. Why? It's just the nature. So the same thing, she thought, listen, you know what? He went crazy. He started saying that he's not going to have relations with me. Okay, fine. After 2 weeks, when the wine starts coming down, when the guy starts getting the head a little bit clearer, he'll calm down, and then he'll make up with it. Right? But here, she was the one that made the neder, and he kept quiet. So Savra, she thinks, if he's keeping quiet, it means that he hates it. Meaning, for him to make the neder, he could be a hothead. Matches, and it goes on fire. So he's going to say certain things, right? And then what happens? And then he'll calm down. If she's the one making the neder and he's not going to annul it, maybe Bemet he hates her. And if he doesn't care, because of that, so then that's going to be a difference. Okay? Fine. The two dots. Rabbi Yosef says, when we're talking about aniyot, that there's no kitzvah, so then they have to go out immediately. Okay, but if you give them kitzvah, so then they don't have to wait. So says how much is a kitzvah? I'm going to give them a shvur. It says 12 months. Okay, Rabbi Bar Chana Amar. Rav Chana says the name of Yochanan. 10 years. Rav Chasta Amar. Rav Chasta says, yeah, he says in the name of Avimi Regel, right, which is basically the Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, the Regel. Shekem benot Yisrael nikashu benegel. There was a certain time that all benot Yisrael would put on, their jewelry, their makeup. It's Regel. It's Chagim. We know that on Chagim, they come and they dress themselves up. They put on much more. Fine. Ba'ashirot, we're talking about the rich women 30 days. Ma'isha shoshim yom, why is it 30 days? Because basically, since she's not going to come, basically she puts on this, the reach of kishutea, and she's not going to put it on for another. Because you see from here that the olden day perfumes, right? It was like mamash. It was not like nowadays the perfume after half an hour, it's so synthetic, it's just water that it goes away. She was able to be mitkashetet until 30 days, and then she would do it again. So it's mamash. It was like something that it was done once every 30 days. That was like mamash like shoot. So think about it, mamash. Put it on for 30 days. She was fine. And that's what she had. Fine. Says Mishnah. Okay. Mishnah Ayin Aleph Amud Bet 71b. Mishnah. Hamadidet ishto shelo telech levet avia. This is a good one. Yeah, she comes and he makes a neder. His wife cannot go to the father-in-law, right, to the in-laws. He doesn't want her to go to the in-laws. Makes a neder. Boom. So bisman shehu ima ba'id. If the father is in the city, which means that they live in the same city, and therefore she cannot, it's impossible. Chodesh echad, right? 1 month. Yikayem, right? We're going to wait. And if it's going to be, right, shnaim, then it's going to be yotzi. Then he has to get rid of her immediately. He has to come and he has to, again, I keep on saying get rid of her. It just means that he has to divorce immediately and he has to pay the ketubah because he's the cause. The yitain ketubah, he has to give the ketubah. What happens if the father's in another city? So therefore, she doesn't have to go all the time. So then it's a regel echad. So then it's one yom tov. Because usually for the yamim tovim, right, they would come to the parents. Yekayem, so then it's going to be okay. Right? Shosha yotzi, right? It's going to be 3, right? Shalosh regalim, right? So then you see. So here we went from 1 regel to shalosh regalim. 1 regel you would still wait. Shosha regalim yotzi v'ten kedubah. Hamadir ishto shelo telech lebet havel. Imagine right now a person comes and he tells his wife he doesn't want her going to the bet havel. Why? She goes there, she comes back all crying, all that. Doesn't want her going to a house of avelut. All of it going to a wedding. Right? She comes back, she was too excited, she started drinking. He doesn't want her going to weddings. Right? Or she stays too long there. So what happens? Why? Because he's closing the door in front of her. So when I was going to explain what does this mean, then he's basically a person cannot force his wife not to go to weddings. A person cannot force his wife not to go to a maybe he's saying there's because it's something else. Meaning because he already knew they're going to go to the wedding, mixed dancing, this, that. Rashai. He's allowed to. What does that mean? Right? He's allowed to come and prohibit her from going. And he's not chayav lotziyota. Because here it's something normal. Right? Amarla, what happens if now he comes and he tells the wife, right? What happens? Imagine right now, he comes and he tells his wife, he makes a neder. That it's on condition that you go and you tell this person what you just told me, or on condition that you tell what I just told you, right? Or, for example, on condition that you're going to come and okay, there's a whole thing about putting in the garbage. So we're going to speak about that in the Gemara. He has to divorce her and he has to give her the ketubah. Says the Gemara, 1 second, what's going on over here? Amarta, you just told me, right? The Mishnah in itself is a contradiction. Why? Because you just told me, regel echad dikayen, right? Ashnaim, right? Yotzi v'ten ketubah. You just told me, 1 second. Right? Says we're making a duke. One more time. Right? The Mishnah only said regel echad yikayem. Mashma shne regalim yotzi v'ten ketubah. What about the Seifa? The Seifa only said shlosha yotzi v'ten ketubah. So that's a stira. Why are you going from one extreme to the other? You're telling me if it's regel echad yikayem shtaim mashma no, but you didn't tell me no. Also, what do you say? Shlosha no. So what's going on? What happens with shtaim? What's going on? Hashtaim yikayem. So it's a stira in the Mishnah itself already. There's a stira. So I'm going to Abaye comes and says, the Seifa Tan Kohenet. No. When we said that Shlosha Yotzi, right, that's only for Kohenet. Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda. Because basically for Mashma, for everybody else, it's going to be 2 regalim, right? But why? Because the Kohenet, we already said that you have to give them extra time because if he's going to blow his fuse, Kamarnu, he can never take her back. Rabbi Barula says, Lakash, that's not a question. Kam beredufa, kam b'she'ena redufa. The Mishnah is talking, the Reisha is talking about Redufa, which means she's trying to run to her father's house and she always goes there. So therefore, we only wait 1 regel. Why? Because she's always by the father's house. You stopped her for 1 regel. Okay, 1 regel, we're going to wait. More than that? No. But she doesn't always go to her father's house. She goes once in a blue moon. So therefore, in such a case, so then we would wait. Shnei regalim. Okay? So it says the Gemara, now that we're talking about Rufa or non-Rufa, we're going to mention a pasuk in Shira Shirim. Perek Chet, Yod. Az hayiti ve'enav ki motzeet shalom. Ve'amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, what is this referring to? And we're talking about Knesset Yisrael. Kekala shenintzet shlema b'vet chamia. We're talking about the kala that she's in the house of her husband, that he loves her so much, because therefore she's shlemalo without any mum after the nisuin, without any blemish after the wedding. So therefore she's coming to her parents' house to say how much she's accepted in her husband's house. Right? That means that's what we're saying of Knesset Yisrael. Right? Yeah? So that's what the explanation is. So now he comes and he says, right? What does it mean in the pasuk in Hosea that it's going to be on that day that Hashem is going to call me my husband, right? And not, right? Again, Ishi, my husband. What's the difference between Ishi and Bali? Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, right, Knesset Yisrael during the time of Geulah, we are very close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kekala bevet chamia. Right? I mean, she's already married and she's in her husband's house. And therefore, she's always with the husband. And therefore, she's not embarrassed of the husband. And therefore, she's calling him Ishi. Ishi is like something, what do we say Ishi? The var Ishi. Ivrit, what is Ishi? Personal. Something personal. Yeah. So Akavana also, she's calling him Ishi because it's Ki'ilu, they're personal to them. They're very, very close to them. They look at Kala, but not like a Kala in her father's house, that she's still in Anusa. When she's in Anusa, it's only Bali. Bali is Lashon Adnut. You understand? When a woman comes and she says, Ze Bali, Kilu Ze Ha'adon Sheli, Ze Bali. He says, Ze Ishi, this is my personal, this is my husband. So if you have a very good bond, a very good connection, it's Ishi, right? It's mamash, personal. If not, right? So then he comes and he says, right? He comes and he says that it's going to be Bali, right? Instead of the Ishi. Two dots. Ishi is yoter karov. It's personal, right? Kemod var Ishi, right? V'dim Ishi, personal. Yeah, but it's much more personal, right? Ishi ze kirva ava. Ze kilu ze. We're by the two dots where it says Amadidet Ishto. Bishlam Bet Mishteh. I understand the Bet Mishteh that a person does not want his wife to go to the Bet Mishteh, which is basically what is Bet Mishteh? To the weddings, right? I'm Bet Amudalef 72A1. Ika Noel Befanea. So therefore, I understand you're closing the door in front of her. Why? She wants to have simcha. If you're going to take away simcha from a woman, right? Why do you think if you remember, we also learned in the Gemara that a woman is always like, picking up her, like as if she's always running to weddings, even an elderly lady, always running to weddings. That's excitement. That's they're always running. They want to go to a wedding. So he says, what are you closing? You're telling her don't go to a bet avel. Well, what's a right? So he says, no. Tana, the reason why was if you tell her not to go to bet avel, the next day, or not, whenever it is, she's going to die. Nobody's going to come to her either. So you're locking the door in front of her. Because if she never goes to be Menachem Avelim, why in the world will somebody come to her? So you're locking the door in front of her. So that's why also to the Bet Avel is going to be the same thing. Some people say Sofna, right? Because the first one was Sofda, is to eulogize. The second one is Sofna. Sofna is what? Not to eulogize, but rather to what? To koverota, to actually bury her. Okay? So Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Hayar Rabbi Meir says, what does it mean in the pasuk Tol Lechet El Bet Avel? Right, it's always better to go to the Bet Avel to go to the Bet Mishteh. I mean, you have a choice. You could either go to the wedding or go to the Bet Avel. You cannot do both. Which one's better to go? The Shlomo Melech, Alav Shalom, the Chacham Mikol Adam. He already told you, Tov lelechet the Bet Avel. It's better to go to the Bet Avel. Kasher hu Yusuf Kol Adam. That's the end of every single human being. The person that's alive, he's going to put it to her heart. What does it mean? Dvarim shel mitah. What does that mean? He's going to start paying attention to 1 second. Everybody dies. When a person comes and he realizes nobody's here forever, all of a sudden a person sees a 50-year-old passing away, this passing away, that. You start saying, what, 1 second, that could be anybody. At the end of the day, nobody has an insurance for 120, right? The safad is peduneh. The one that eulogizes other people, he'll be eulogized. The kavari, if a person always goes to the Bet HaChaim to be mashlim, they will do it to him. Somebody that comes and starts crying and brings that, they'll do it for him. The lavai, if he's milaveh, he's the levaya, so they're going to do it for him as well. The ta'ani taneh, somebody that carries the coffin, they'll carry him for a while, which means what goes around comes around, which means that according to the person is, right, I know some people, they never want to be mashlim, they never want to, so why would somebody do it for them? Why would somebody come? They don't go to anybody's parties. They don't go to anybody's nothing. So if they're not cumplido, that's what they say in Spanish. They call it cumplido. If they're not going to come and always mishtatef, right, with other people, why in the world are people going to be mishtatef with them? So when they have a simcha, nobody's going to come. When they have a this, nobody's going to. Why? Because, they don't pay attention. That's it. Okay, we'll continue with